Kash Patel.
Kash Patel.
Kash Patel. He was confirmed in a narrow 51-49 vote.
Despite Democratic concerns about Patel's relative lack of management experience compared to his predecessors, as well as concerns that he might look to operate as a Donald Trump loyalist and use the powers of the FBI to go after adversaries of the president.
This was the most partisan vote, as far as I can tell, in U.S. history.
Kash Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins, conspiracy theory as part of a honeypot operation.
Would you like to see additional Epstein files released?
You know what, if people stop calling me a spy, absolutely.
Yeah, I can understand. For the record, I should ask you, are you a spy for any government?
Definitely not. That is a firm no. Definitely not. That is a firm no. Firm no. Firm no.
Jose Uribe.
We're here today to reiterate our strong concerns about Iran's nuclear program, the threat it poses to the United States, Israel, and the entire international community.
Their legitimate right to live in peace and security in the land that has been their home for thousands of years. And that is why I will never yield in my efforts to stop a nuclear Iran and in my support of Israel and that unshakable bond in the national interests of the United States.
Hamas.
Hamas.
Iran.
Iran.
Terrorists.
Terrorists.
Hamas.
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 Iran.
Iran. Iran.
Terrorists.
Terrorists. Terrorists.
Unjust evictions and demolitions in East Jerusalem certainly only heighten tensions and move actors away from further direct negotiations. And so I would hope that the Israeli government would cease those so that we ultimately can get to a point that we can engage in some real effort to move forward on what will ultimately be, I hope, a two-state solution. But none of this can happen while violence is taking place.
To the challenges of the Palestinian people, Hamas is a terrorist organization. They're barbaric. There's no question about that. And Israel must do what is necessary to wipe them off the face of the earth. Having said that, the Palestinian people in and of themselves are not Hamas. So what do you see your role as the U.S. ambassador as it relates to finding a better future for them?
Chairman Bob Menendez has been sentenced to 11 years in prison. Remember the gold bars and the Mercedes? The Democrat from New Jersey was convicted of taking these bribes and acting as an agent of Egypt.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Damian Williams, and I'm the United States Attorney here in the Southern District of New York. Today I'm announcing that my office has obtained a 3-count indictment charging Senator Robert Menendez, his wife Nadine Menendez, and 3 New Jersey businessmen, Wael Hana, Jose Uribe, and Fred Davies, for bribery offenses. The investigation that led to these charges has been run out of the Southern District of New York. The indictment alleges that between 2018 and 2022, Senator Menendez, the senior U.S. Senator from New Jersey and the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and his wife Nadine Menendez, engaged in a corrupt relationship with Hana, Uribe, and Davies. The indictment alleges that through that relationship, the senator and his wife accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars of bribes in exchange for Senator Menendez using his power and influence to protect and to enrich those businessmen and to benefit the government of Egypt.
My time in Congress, I have remained steadfast on the side of civil society and human rights defenders in Egypt and everywhere else in the world. If you look at my actions related to Egypt during the period described in this indictment and throughout my whole career, my record is clear and consistent in holding Egypt accountable for its unjust detention of American citizens and others, its human rights abuses, its deepening relationship with Russia, and efforts that have eroded the independence of the nation's judiciary, among a myriad of concerns. In 2017, I led a bipartisan letter to then-President Trump expressing grave concern with the worsening situation for human rights and civil society in Egypt. That same year, I sent a letter to the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee supporting U.S. assistance to Egypt as long as Egypt adhered to the Camp David Accords and urged the Appropriations Committee to include the requirements for assistance reform strategies outlined in the Egypt Assistance Reform Act of 2013. In 2018, I urged Secretary Tillerson to focus more on human rights issues in Egypt and raise concerns that the electoral environment ahead of Egypt's elections at the time was not free, fair, and credible. In 2019, I met with President El-Sisi at the Munich Security Conference and emphasized the level of repression inside of Egypt, risking eroding our security cooperation and raising concerns about Egypt's intent to purchase a Russian missile system. In 2020, I spoke on the Senate floor for International Women's Day and cited the cases of Marinor El-Masri, a human rights lawyer, and Ezra Abdel Fattah, a human rights activist and reporter who were unjustly detained in Egypt for fighting for human rights, democracy, and a free press. I have placed holds on foreign military sales funding to Egypt, and in the presence of other United States senators, I have challenged President Sisi direct on human rights abuses, arbitrary detention, and press freedom. And the list goes on. Throughout my 30 years in the House of Representatives and the Senate, I have always worked to hold accountable those countries, including Egypt, for human rights abuses, the repression of its citizenry, civil society, and more. Those who now are attempting to malign my actions as it relates to Egypt simply don't know the facts.
During his tenure, he oversaw several high-profile cases, including the convictions of former New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez.
A unanimous jury has found Ghislaine Maxwell guilty. Sam Bankman-Fried perpetrated one of the biggest financial frauds in American history.
Williams' office also indicted Mayor Eric Adams on bribery charges. And music mogul Sean Diddy Combs on sex trafficking charges.
Are some of the prosecutors on this case some of the same prosecutors that had been handling that or that worked on the Maxwell case?
So I'm not going to get into the staffing. I will say that this team, this group of AUSAs, this incredible group has been working on this case around the clock, and they've had their hands full.
Overnight, the FBI and Justice Department releasing 11 hours of footage they say helps confirm notorious financier Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide in his Manhattan jail cell.
Look, the video jumps just before 11:59 to midnight. There's 1 full minute missing. Attorney General Pam Bondi tried to explain the missing minute.
Every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing.
But perhaps the biggest bombshell, investigators say they found no incriminating client list of Epstein's, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals, and no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties.
From the 16th century until the early 20th century, the land that is now Israel was under the control of a distant Ottoman caliphate based in Istanbul.
He is a Turkish Sunni cleric, part of the jihadist Sufi Ottoman tradition, and he founded in the 20th century a socio-political movement. He calls it Hizmet, and Hizmet in Turkish means service. That is what the organization is called.
In Israel, you can look up CIA, in our case the Mossad. We thought we should ask, what shall we call it in English? You can translate the Hebrew words, as I said, Mossad is institute, but when they write a letter to their friends in the CIA or the British intelligence, what do they call themselves? It took a while. It was a matter of asking the Prime Minister's spokesman. The best you could do, because officially the Mossad is under the Prime Minister's office. And I think he sort of wondered why you want to know and all that, so we explained. And he came up with the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. I mean, if it were to have initials, it would be ISIS.
Well, it's a peculiar thought, because the fact that jihadis, I mean, supposedly part of their stereotype and their profile that we've been fed for decades is the idea that every jihadi at the heart of this just hates Israel. And so it just goes against the grain to find out that Al-Qaeda has all these other targets and ISIS has all these other targets besides Israel. And the fact that, once again, Al-Qaeda has been around for quite some time now, and now even ISIS has been around for quite some time now.
It has become a global, worldwide organization, an empire in the financial sense, business sense, and otherwise, academic as well as or spiritual businesses, which form the financial basis for this empire and fund it to a great extent. His organization, which as I mentioned called Hizmet, began to take shape in the 1960s and on into the 1970s, and then he really established schools within this movement by the 1980s. He says here, you must move in the arteries of the system without anyone noticing your existence until you reach all the power centers, until the conditions are right. They, meaning the followers, must continue like this. Gulen was going to come into conflict with the Turkish government of that time. We're still in the 20th century here. In fact, he was charged with offenses in the 1990s. Just ahead of prosecution, He came to the United States to avoid that prosecution and was given safe haven in the United States, in the Poconos Mountains area of Pennsylvania. This is where the concern comes in. If this were happening only in Turkey and this power struggle were going on only in Turkey, we would say, well, you know, this is of great concern because Turkey is a NATO ally, but it's not quite the same concern as when it's taking place right here in the homeland in the United States. Gulen is establishing a presence and a network inside the United States. That network in the United States consists of cultural centers and charter schools in particular. Some of the schools are under legal investigation by the FBI and other law enforcement, some of it local, some of it federal. The allegations involve things like influence operations, and is now the president of Turkey. Democracy is like a train, he said. You get off once you have reached your destination. Meaning, he is willing to use the democratic process to subvert a liberal democracy.
As a nation, you swear to release the Epstein files, but now you're withholding the Epstein files. You claim that you have a suspect in a serious assassination. Whoops, then you don't have a suspect. You know nothing about plans to remove FBI agents yet. You're directly involved in those plans. In the words of an ex-FBI official, you are overseeing, and I quote, generational destruction of the nation's premier law enforcement agency. Mr. Patel, in just 8 months, you have assaulted the institutional integrity of the FBI. But I know FBI field agents. I've worked with them in Newark. No matter how truly bad you are, you can't undermine the legacy of agents who fight every day to keep us safe, but you can tarnish the integrity of the agency and undermine the agency's capacity. I believe you're failing as a leader, and that your failure does have serious implications for the safety and security of Americans and our families. We're more vulnerable to domestic and foreign attack because of your failures of leadership. I don't think you're fit to head the Bureau, but here's the thing, Mr. Patel. I think you're not going to be around long. I think this might be your last oversight hearing. Because as much as you supplicate yourself to the will of Donald Trump and not the Constitution of the United States of America, Donald Trump has shown us in his first term and in this term, he is not loyal to people like you. He will cut you loose. This may be the last time I have a hearing with you because I don't think you're long for your job. But I'm going to tell you this, I pray for you. I pray for you that you can step up and defend your oath, defend the Constitution, and do a much better job of defending this country.